Your Excellencies, members of IFIMES Council, members of IFIMES, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, allow to welcome you in the name of International Institute of Middle East and Balkan Studies, IFIMES from Ljubljana, the organizers of today's lecture of Mr. Wadia Abunassar, with the title Middle East in the Post-Gaza Flotilla Era. A special welcome and gratitude goes to our guest today from Israel, the acclaimed and highly respected Mr. Wadia Abunassar, the Director of International Center for Consultations from Haifa. I wish Mr. Abunassar pleasant stay in our wonderful country. Mr. Abunassar has a master's degree in political sciences. In the Israeli, Palestinian and foreign media CNN, Al Jazeera, he appears as independent commentator and expert on situations in the Middle East. He is a member of Arab Christian community in Israel. The lecture will be given in English. It will be followed by a discussion with Mr. Wadia Abunassar, moderated by my colleague Bakhtiar Alaf and myself, Ziad Bechirovic. Before I give to the floor Mr. Abunassar, I would also like to thank Government Communication Office and Slovenian Embassy in Israel for a very good cooperation in organizing this event. I would also like to inform you that IFIMES has a new member of Council, Mr. Craig Smith, former political director of the White House. And now I give the floor to Mr. Wadia Abunassar.
Well, good evening to everybody. It is always a pleasure to be here in Slovenia. It is my second visit. I myself am coming in a kind of mixed visit, partially official. I just had this afternoon a very interesting meeting with the President of the Republic, Dr. Danilo Turk, discussing political issues in the Middle East and some kind of offering some of our views and possible cooperation. But also I'm coming to talk about possible business cooperation, mainly between about 1 million of Palestinian Arab citizens of Israel with the Slovene business community. We believe that Palestinians in Israel, or Israeli Arabs as some people call them, are great potential in many fields. By being Palestinians and Israelis, we could be also a bridge for a better understanding between Arabs and Jews, because we are Arabs and we are Israelis, so we know how the Israelis think and we are Arabs, and also in terms of promoting better business. I am heading a private think tank. It's called the International Center for Consultations. It is the only private think tank in Israel and Palestine, in a sense that we are not NGO, neither semi-governmental. It means we are living from offering consultancy services. We do offer consultancy services to about 200 kinds of clients, mainly foreign governments. We have about 50 foreign governments taking consultation services on Middle Eastern issues, mainly Israeli and Palestinian issues. But we are offering also consultancy to companies, to municipalities, to NGOs, etc., on various Middle Eastern issues. My expertise is quite funny, because I wrote my master thesis on women in Palestinian politics, and by many Israeli officials I'm considered to be expert on Arab affairs. But since in the early 90s I was the only Arab at the Department of Political Science at Tel Aviv University, I was asked by my then supervisors to provoke the Jews and to teach them Israel domestic politics. And since then, unfortunately or fortunately, many Arabs consider me expert on Israel. I believe that in our region, as more you study, as more you discover that you are a student. It is difficult to be expert because every minute is history. So, nevertheless, I was asked today by the organizers, especially at the advice of the foreign ministry, mainly the ambassador of Slovenia in Tel Aviv, to talk a little bit about contemporary issues. and we thought that this Gaza flotilla raid, etc., and the repercussions, all the contemporary developments could be an issue of interest. My point is not to deliver a lecture. My point is to make some thoughts, to share with you some telegrams in order to be short. I would like to speak not more than 20 minutes, and then to have more discussion. I will be very delighted to learn from your comments, to learn from your questions as well. Now, to make some kind of quick comments about the flotilla in specific, the general conditions in the Middle East in general. Well, concerning the flotilla, it is natural that people who see more than 1 million Palestinians or human beings, regardless if they are Palestinians, living in the biggest prison in the world, which is called Gaza Strip. Okay, one could say it is justified, it is not justified, Hamas, not Hamas, but there is a fact. There is a collective punishment for more than 1 million persons, regardless what is their nationality. And as such, always you find people who sympathizes with these kinds of people. And this flotilla didn't come out of the blue, as we say. It comes because of natural development. In my opinion, the big fuss was because of two things. First, that it was a flotilla. It was not, unlike in the past, it was not separate ships anymore, because in the past it was one boat, one ship, but nothing organized like this. The second was the Israeli stupidity. Now concerning the Israeli stupidity, there are two opinions. There are some who believe that it was intentionally made, this kind of violent raid, to teach a lesson. It means we want to send signal that we don't care to anybody. We want to deter people from making more ships. By knowing the Israelis, I doubt that this is this. I think it was more stupidity than a planned thing. But this is the other version. The other version is that the Israelis had shortage of intelligence, had a shortage of enough training to the people who made the raid, have a bad preparation, and of course they did almost all possible mistakes. They went on the ships in international water. They sent army troops who are used to deal with terrorists instead of sending police who are dealing with rioters. So I believe the Israelis committed every possible mistake. Now, concerning the flotilla itself, some people say that although that in the immediate outcome it was bad for Israel, it is further isolation to Israel. It damaged Israel's image. It caused many people, even friendly countries, to express condemnation, tough condemnation to Israel. Though there are some people, especially in the Israeli right wing, who argue, no, okay, maybe it is not the best thing, but why not to make it an advantage? Advantage in a sense, why not now to use this opportunity to throw Gaza? To throw Gaza on Egypt, to throw Gaza on Europe. Let us find other subcontractors to work for us. Instead of being accused that we are occupying Gaza, let the Europeans do this dirty job on our behalf. Now, one of the other dangerous things is that there are some radical right wing in Israel who are thinking about throwing the West Bank, either to Jordan, or throwing the West Bank in the political sense that the PA, the Palestinian Authority, is not efficient. So let us try to think about other ways of maybe kind of partial autonomy, etc. In the bottom line, what is very clear to me is that the Israeli leadership doesn't want peace. Now, what they want, many times I'm even laughing to them. I said, I'm not sure that they know what they want. You see, because unfortunately, since the assassination of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in 1995, Israel is suffering from serious crisis of leadership. It is difficult to talk nowadays about the presence of statesmen in Israel. There are many politicians, but really it is very difficult to find statesmen, and those who are capable to be statesmen are going to business. They are frustrated from the system, they are frustrated from the atmosphere, and unfortunately, if you make a comprehensive study, you find that most Israeli politicians nowadays are either corrupt or on their way to be revealed as corrupt. So it is a very sad reality, but with such kind of leadership, one could not have much expectations. Now, if to make a general, in addition to, I'm ready again to discuss the whole issue of the flotilla by details, but I'm really very eager to share with you our thoughts about why we are not much optimist about the contemporary reality. And our lack of much optimism comes from four main reasons. The first reason is exactly what I just told you, that the problem in Israel nowadays, it is not only that there is a crisis of leadership, there is a serious shift in the last 10 years amongst the Jewish public opinion towards right. So most Israeli Jews are becoming more anti-Arab. And it is not because they are anti-Arab, because they are feeling as if there is existential threat to Israel. By the way, I disagree to this assessment, but there is this feeling, and with feelings it is difficult to argue. And I believe that we as Arabs, we should think and we should contribute how to reduce this feeling amongst Jews. We should be more with more care to the Jews. But this is another issue that I will be very happy to elaborate later on. And with such kind of atmosphere, when I am suspicious towards my neighbor, that my neighbor wants to kill me, my neighbor doesn't want me to exist, my neighbor wants to throw me to the sea, I wouldn't do peace with him. And this is the exact atmosphere that is dominant now in the Israeli society, which is, in my opinion, very destructive to Israel itself, not only to the peace process. It is very bad to Israel because this is creating unjustified tensions inside the Israeli society. The second reason which makes us not much optimistic is the Palestinian reality. Nowadays, unfortunately, it is already 3 years that Gaza was conquered somehow by Hamas, and as you know, there are internal Palestinian disputes, serious ones, and despite serious efforts by Egypt and some other activists, of course, Egypt has the main role to play in this regard, but still, although now people are talking about some optimism, but still I believe it is not easy to talk about foreseen agreement. Though I know that there are serious efforts, the visit of the Arab League Secretary General some days to Gaza, and there are resumed efforts by Egypt, by other players. Let us hope that, but I'm not optimistic yet in this regard, because unfortunately in the Palestinian cause in 2004 the Palestinians lost to a certain extent their political independence. In 2004 the Palestinians lost two charismatic leaders. On March 22nd, Israel assassinated Sheikh Ahmad Yassin, the founder of Hamas, who was a very charismatic person, and I believe he was a very moderate person, unlike the image that was given to him. And in November 2004, Yasser Arafat died, mysteriously died, and I insist on the word mysteriously because it is difficult to find an Arab who believes that he died naturally. But this is another issue. But in 2004, two important leaders of the Palestinian cause disappeared from the scene. And unfortunately, the Palestinians, unlike the Israelis, also the Palestinians are suffering from crisis of leadership. You see, in Fatah, for instance, there is now a joke in Fatah. You know, Fatah is one of the most important Palestinian factions. There is a common joke in Fatah. It is very similar about the Israeli Labour Party, that the leaders of these two parties are prevailing because their rivals hate each other more than they hate them. So in Fatah, the rivals of President Abbas, they hate each other more than they hate him. The same of Ehud Barak. His rivals hate each other more than they hate him. Does it mean that they love or respect their leaders? No. It means that they have difficulty to topple them, mainly because they have internal rivalry. And you know, and the problem is that President Abbas, in fact, now with the current situation of Fatah, which became a vague movement, not very well organized, he became a general with no soldiers. And what makes things even more difficult is the presence of active Prime Minister Salam Fayyad, who somehow present a different model of leadership. I believe that it is a promising model, but it is a challenge to not only to President Abbas but to Fatah. So therefore we are talking not only about Hamas-Fatah dispute, but even within the PA, within the Palestinian Authority, we have a certain dispute between the President's office and the Prime Minister's office and Fatah and those who disagree with Fatah. With such kind of reality, the Palestinians are serving the Israeli right wing. And I'm highlighting Israeli right wing, not Israel. Unlike the dominant belief that in Israel, that it is perfect for us, because now it is a situation that we have one state, which is Israel, with two entities. It is excellent. This gives us every possible excuse not to give the Palestinians anything. Let them go to hell. You see, for me, as Israeli, if I meet a foreign politician, I will say, "What do you want from me? They are not trustworthy towards each other. Do you want me to trust them? Am I crazy?" But in my opinion, for the long run, it is very bad for Israel, for simple reason, because with such reality, Palestinians are losing faith in the two-state solution. Now it is difficult to find any Palestinian who believe in two-state solution. Most Palestinians are talking about one-state solution. And one-state solution, it is strategic threat not to the Palestinians, to the Israelis. Therefore, you know, many times I'm joking to senior Israeli leaders, you know, if I were you, I will force the Palestinians to accept a state. I will not negotiate with them. I will give them a state. You see, especially because we are talking about West Bank and Gaza. I'm sorry, you know, with all the respect to West Bank and Gaza, they are the worst part of Palestine. You see, Israel will keep to itself the best part of Palestine, and not only the best part, most of the part. We are talking about 78% of mandatorial Palestine kept as Israel, and getting every possible legitimacy, including from all Arab and Muslim countries. And this is an achievement that the Israeli right wing, the stupid right wing, don't understand yet. So this is the second challenge for peace. The third challenge is the international community. The international community, unfortunately, instead of being part of the solution, many times it becomes part of the problem. They try to come to help, etc., you know, and they end with half solutions. It is very simple. If the international community, especially the US, is serious, they have to tell Mr. Netanyahu, enough is enough. We should call the boy in its name, the end of occupation. Full stop. Not, you know, not to allow some glasses of water into Gaza which were not allowed yesterday. The Palestinians have enough tunnels to bring glasses of water. They don't need Netanyahu for that. The Palestinians want political horizon. This is the main reason, you know, why the Palestinians went into Intifada in 1987. Their economic condition was excellent. But still, they went to Intifada, they went to anti-Israeli rebellion because they had no political horizon. The Palestinians want self-determination. This is what many world leaders either don't want to understand or fail to understand. As simple as that. They don't want more glasses of water, they don't want some food, they find their way to survive. The problem, it is not physical survival, it is a political issue. But the problem is that the international community, when it comes to Israel, for a variety of reasons that I'm ready to go and to explain, Israel is somehow treated as the spoiled child. Okay, I understand all sensitivities, Holocaust, not Holocaust, the Jewish identity of Israel, it is quite a complicated issue. But again, in my opinion, by doing this, the international community is doing bad to Israel. Because in such way, if I'm spoiling my child, I'm making him behaving bad, I'm making people hating him. I will not help him to be beloved. And if we wish or not, Israel is part of the Middle East. It is not sitting in Europe. You see? So this is the third problem. The fourth problem, in my opinion, which is considered to be a serious obstacle to peace, is the weakness of the Arab world. Let us be frank. I wish to speak about the opposite, but nowadays the Arab world is very divided. In the Middle East, the major real strong players who are giving the tone are the three non-Arab players: Iran, Israel, and Turkey. The other Arab countries are either busy in their internal affairs, they have disputes with each other. We can elaborate. It is very sad, that powerful countries which were very, very prominent in the past, like Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, are marginalized. For a variety of reasons, I'm ready again to elaborate, to talk about each of these countries. But now let us be frank, none of these countries is as a strong player as it used to be once. But nevertheless, despite this kind of reasons, I believe that there are two signals of hope. The first signal is the presence of some moderate leadership who is aware that radicalization is catastrophe for Arabs. Such leadership exists in Jordan, in Egypt, in United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia, but the most active is Prime Minister Salam Fayyad in Ramallah. He is presenting the most systematic model of active leader who has plans on one hand, but he is a man on the ground almost on a daily basis. I believe that this simultaneously there is some hope in some parts of the world. I was very, very positively surprised how President Turk, for instance, is familiar with the situation there and how readiness he expresses. But I believe that what we are talking about, is sporadic islands. We need to reflect, to think how not to unite. There is no possibility to unite, but to have some kind of networking, or what I call it puzzling, that these kind of sporadic islands to joint efforts to face the challenges that radical right in Israel as in the Arab world are presenting to the stability. So this is one light. Another light, and I believe, is the Arab community of Israel. Not because I'm part of this community, but I believe we are talking about 1 million who understand Israel very well. We are living with Israeli Jews for more than 60 years. But also by being Arabs, we are part, at least ethnically, part of our Arab surrounding. Instead of delegitimizing us, like what the Israeli government is doing nowadays, I believe that by bringing the Arab population into business, into politics, etc., by integrating it, this could be used as a bridge for mutual understanding. And especially, in my opinion, one part of the problem in the Middle East is that Arabs and Jews don't understand each other very well yet. They are two schools either underestimate or overestimate the other. You know, in Israel, maybe I'm simplifying things, there are the schools of President Peres and Prime Minister Netanyahu. President Peres thinks that the Jews are the brain. They should tell the Arabs, who are the arms, what to do, what not to do, what is good for them and what is bad for them. Prime Minister Netanyahu, he overestimates the Arabs. He talks as if the Arabs want to destroy Israel, and many times if you hear him, you think that if Israel is a poor guy and everybody is beating him. So, on the other hand, there are two schools in the Arab world. There are those who believe, and not only the Arab world, in the Muslim world, there are those who believe, oh, that Israel is weak, you know, Israel is collapsing, you know, and if there will be peace, Israel will collapse. It is not true. And there are those who are overestimating Israel. Oh, Israel is a monster, Israel control America, you know. It is also not true. Israel-America relationship, it is quite complicated issue, you know. There is a kind of job division, you know. Israel leads America in the Middle East, America leads Israel in the rest of the world. For instance, if Israel wants to do a deal with China, they need American permission. So, and one of the danger, by the way, and I believe it is a failure of the Arab, especially the Palestinians, that in the American public opinion, and I visit US frequently, there is a serious problem. The Americans consider the Palestinian-Israeli conflict as if being domestic Israeli issue. You see? And this is one of the challenges for the Palestinians. There is a challenge to convince the Americans that it is not Israeli internal business. It is international issue. It is international crisis. So, to sum up, I believe that despite that the situation now is not promising, I don't like to say we are in a hopeless case. The situation is not easy. It is very complicated. But it is enough to know that there are some people of goodwill in some Arab countries, in some European countries mainly. Because the Americans, sometimes I feel that they are more dreamers than realistic people. But I believe that there is a chance for better future. But the point is that we should start moving from talking more theories to try to think more about some practical ideas. And I would like to conclude by telling you about one practical idea that we implemented recently. As I told you, there are about 1 million Arabs in Israel. And we succeeded to get a fund from the Danish government to subsidize busing of Arabs from Israel to make shopping in the West Bank. The idea in the West Bank, it is cheaper market, and for Arabs in Israel, it is natural to go there to shop. But the Israelis used to have to put difficulties, checkpoints, etc. But what we started to do is to bus masses of people, you know, to make some kind, you know, to put the army on the crossings under a kind of person siege, you know. So they started slowly to allow more smooth transit of people. And I can tell you that I met recently a very senior American interlocutor who told me what you succeeded to do with this busing, we failed to do in 2 years. Because they were talking to the Israelis, and the Israelis say, oh, we will think, we will discuss, we will... But they did. But when the Israeli troops found that there are masses of people waiting on the checkpoint, they were obliged to open. So, and I tell you more than that, this busing project, we are pumping about 1 million shekels in cash. It means about a little bit more than 200,000 euros per week. It is not much, but the fact that this money is coming cash to the people, it is not a long investment, it is immediate investment. And not only that, for every 100 euros of subsidy to bus, because a bus from Israel to West Bank costs about 300 to 400 euros. And the Danes are subsidizing 100. But each bus is bringing about 3,000 euros cash in shopping. And according to the Palestinian government, this project contributed between 5 to 7% in the growth of the Palestinian West Bank economy. I believe that similar projects could bring hope. And we should not say that things are hopeless. Things are difficult, especially with the Israeli right wing, especially with the current American administration that unfortunately created a lot of unbased expectations. You know, President Obama delivered very interesting speeches in Cairo, Istanbul, creating a lot of expectations, but unfortunately the outcome is close to zero, from down, not from up. So, but still one has to be optimistic because we have no alternative. If we will cry, what will happen? Things will be worse. We have to be optimistic, to join efforts and to try to change the reality and to work jointly. I'm very positive that there are in Israel positive elements, as there are positive elements everywhere. And I believe we should, again, try to think in a creative ways to make this kind of networking amongst these sporadic islands to succeed to stop the radical streams which are growing in the region. Thank you very much, and I'm really very happy to be here, and I will be very happy to answer a question or to learn from your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Abunassar. I would like to ask Mr. Al-Jaf to start the discussion.
I will start with one question to you, maybe two questions. Today you talk about the signals of hope and chance for a better future. It's optimistic news which we get to hear today. And now I am asking you, do you believe that we need now in this moment a shadow diplomacy like we have before? The Turkish diplomacy between Syria and Israel, and we have the Egyptian diplomacy between Hamas and Fatah. And now, did we need now? Because I think it's the main point now in the Middle East is very important, the relations between Turkey and Israel.
Yes. Look, I believe that, well, concerning Turkey, let me be frank. My personal assessment, what is happening now, it is not really bilateral issue between Turkey and Israel. It is mainly Turkish response to the EU. Turkey is making messages to the EU. You don't want us? Okay, fine. We have alternatives. So this is my humble reading to the Turkish behavior nowadays. Although that also there is, thanks to Netanyahu's stupidity, there is also, as Netanyahu's stupidity, by the way, with Obama, there is a growth in the interpersonal rivalry between Netanyahu and Erdogan as between Netanyahu and Obama. It is very clear that Netanyahu and Obama don't like each other. And there are rumors also that some of Netanyahu's friends in the US are investing every possible effort now to find a good Republican candidate that to send Obama home already after the first term. It is not a secret. So, but in any case, I don't think that this is a priority. But I believe that we need what I call it third parties, but with two components. Not enough goodwill, but also some basic understanding. The problem is what happens, and I tell you frankly, we are working with many governments. Many people come to the region sometimes with goodwill, sometimes only for what I call it photo opportunity, because I can tell you that I know many ministers who are visiting the area because they have nothing to do. They have some budget for traveling abroad, and they want to be. The Middle East is, I'm sorry for my word, it is sexy, It is to have photo with Abbas, photo with Netanyahu. Why not for a minister of, I'm sorry, not Slovenia, maybe Slovakia, but okay, okay, I did my homework, I traveled to the Middle East, but it is blah blah. It is waste of taxpayers' money. We don't need such kind of diplomacy. The same, we don't need such of the American diplomacy. The American diplomacy, many times, they come maybe with goodwill, at least some of them. I know, for instance, at least that Senator Mitchell is coming with a lot of goodwill. But, we have a proverb in Arabic that the road to hell is full of men of goodwill. So the issue is, it is not enough to have goodwill. You need to have basic understanding. Basic understanding, it means not to press the Israelis more than the Arabs, but to know how to press, when to press, whom to press. So it is, you cannot come deal with Israel as if you are dealing with Slovenia. Israel has its own uniqueness, as the Palestinians have their own way to manage things. You know, many people think that, oh, I was in Micronesia, so I know how things work there, so I will solve the problems of the Middle East. The Middle East, you know, killed prophets, so it will not kill the Americans. So it is not easy business in the Middle East. So therefore, I believe there is a need, but not just, you know, it is like throwing someone in the sea while don't know to swim. So you need to take some courses, you know, to do some homework, and not to come to the Middle East, don't know to distinguish between A and B.
Thank you. Do you have any question now from your side? Please.
I'm a journalist from and a correspondent for a newspaper for part of Yugoslavia. Do you, in your opinion, why did Turkey engage in the humanitarian convoy? Is behind Turkey standing America? In
Look,
your opinion?
yes. Well, I don't want
You
to.
will answer in this question.
Yes. Look, I tell you frankly, there are different versions. I'm not good expert on Turkey policies. There are, at least in our part of the world, there are different explanations to what Turkey is doing. I am sure that Turkey didn't become suddenly an ally of the Palestinians. Turkey, or one should not forget who was occupying the Middle East for centuries. You see, it wasn't America, it wasn't Israel. So I don't think that it is easy, you know. I'm sure that there are some imperialist mentalities, but I believe that there are different explanations to the Turkish issue. Some people say that Turkey is used by America. Others are saying, no, it wants to make some game with the Americans for some kind of upgrade vis-a-vis different issues. Some people say that Turkey is eager also to shoot Iran by shooting Israel. In a sense, you know, that Turkey hints that I am a very important Sunni country, so why to allow the Shiite Iran to play in the Sunni region, which is the Arab world? So there are different interpretations. However, you know, one point is very clear, that I'm sorry to be frank with you, and you can quote me, that Arabs and Israelis are stupid, the majority. Arabs are stupid to believe that Turkey suddenly started to love them, and the Israelis are stupid to believe that suddenly Turkey started to hate them. This is not totally true, and this is not totally true. You see, because I even, you know, I don't think that Turkey will cut its diplomatic ties with Israel. Turkey and Israel has a lot of underground, up the ground cooperation, and I don't think that this will totally be stopped, at least not in the foreseen future. The same, I don't think that Turkey is gaining, especially some business between Arabs and the Turks is flourishing. Good for them. I can tell you more than that. Thanks to the Brazilian some kind of alleged activities, it is also a photo opportunity diplomacy. He gained some good deals from the emotional Arabs. Why not? Arabs by nature are emotional. They don't think much strategically. Of course, not all of them. You see, there are some people in Egypt, in Jordan, in Iraq who thinks more strategically than others, but still the general mood is, you know, it's ups and downs, you know, a lot of emotions involved, you know. I wish that there will be more strategic and rational thinking than emotional. But in any case, I do really believe that it is an issue of interest, and I'm sure that this whole issue of IHH of Turkey, I'm not sure that it is really an issue instigated by the Turkish government, but it is, you know, it is like, you know, when you have an opportunity in business, you have poverty and you want to use, you know, you play on the pride, etc., and you need people to clap hands for you. Okay, you know, now Iranians were embarrassed. They had to send a ship now. So I'm not sure that the Iranians are supportive to the Palestinian cause. And this is, by the way, my dispute with Hamas. Because Hamas thinks that they are allies of the Iranians. I said to them that you are not ally of the Iranians, you are proxy of the Iranian. The Iranian, who is Hamas for Iran? Nobody. Who is Hezbollah for Iran? They are proxies, they are tools. They think that they are heroes if they are shooting here and there. Okay, good for them. But my point, I believe, again, that unfortunately the weakness of moderate Arabs on one hand, the confusion of moderate international players, especially the EU members, on the other hand, this allows different kind of regional players to use the opportunities for their own perceptions. Okay, what to do, I believe that we should not come with accusations to others. We should also come and say where are our mistakes and how we could think to improve it.
Another question? Yes, please. From the Turkish embassy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm the representative of the Turkish embassy.
Please.
And beginning with the title of this conference, it's, I guess, true that a new era has appeared. Because when you think and when you go on from your ideas that one of the, at least 3 entities which are not Arab are the most important actors in the Middle East. And one of the important axes in the Middle East policies or Middle East issues is the Turkish and Israeli relations. So I honestly or frankly speaking, I found your point of view regarding the Turkish attitude towards this issue a little bit shallow, because you're telling that Turkey did in the sake of the EU or in order to take some applause. But from the beginning, with the Turkish government has been telling that, or there are arguments that Turkish foreign policy has a problem with the axis. And nowadays they are arguing that it is turning from the west to the east. But things are changing. But on the other hand, which is not changed, which is also one of the main pillar of the Turkish foreign policy, is based on international or human rights issue. So this is an issue of human rights. Gaza, as you said, it's one of the biggest prisons.
Mm-hmm.
So what Turkey did in the name, the IHA is a kind of it's an NGO.
Yes.
And it's labeled under the UN system. So UN is it's accredited to the UN, and it is not the sole NGO which organized this flotilla. So it's a general one, and approximately 34 countries had their citizens in that flotilla. So someone should do something in order to reflect the views of the people who are suffering in Gaza. And this is a part of it, but it is not directly a state policy. So,
Yes.
Maybe I can take your ideas regarding that one.
Look, no, I'm really appreciate your stance, but I tell you frankly, again, I said that just some minutes ago, I'm not good expert on Turkey, so I cannot elaborate much, but I told you what are the different perceptions that exist, in this regard. What is clear, I can tell you, with all the respect to Turkey, that the situation, the humanitarian situation in the occupied territories, it is not new. It is not new. And maybe the new government of Turkey highlighted it more than its predecessors. But I believe, and I'm sorry to be frank, if the international community, mainly the Muslim and Arab countries, were more serious in humanitarian issue, things would look much better than they are now. There are, but I know I'm a teacher of international politics, and in international politics, human rights, it is only an excuse. So, but in any case, I believe, again, my point that I would like to highlight, it's not Turkey or Egypt. I believe that Israel is shooting itself on the chest by doing this, because I believe that Israel is committing a fatal mistake by not ending its dispute with the Palestinians, with the Arabs. This ongoing dispute is making radicals, not only in Turkey or in Iran, elsewhere. Now it is not a secret, that Israel is suffering everywhere, even in so-called friendly country. I just will tell you a personal anecdote, Once, we as Arabs, citizens of Israel, we used to be proud, while carrying Israeli passport, because we felt, that Israel is respectful, etc. Now I think, before going to any counter in any airport, to start speaking Arabic, or something before presenting my Israeli passport. It is quite uneasy reality, uneasy reality. But again, I believe that the most important thing that really is required, and I'm sorry, again, I have nothing personal against Turkey or this or that. I believe we need more strategic thinking about the reality. Because in my opinion, it is not to push the Israelis in the corner should be a policy or is an achievement. Because if you push a cat to the corner, it might become more dangerous. Maybe you will kill it, but you will be wounded on the way. I don't think that killing Israel or wounding Israel, as some of my friends, Arab and Muslim emotional thinkers, think as achievement. I don't think it is an achievement. You see, I believe that Israel should be, a kind, and this is what we should collaborate, to make Israel more awake that it is committing suicide. And committing suicide, and many times I joke to my Israeli senior friends, I said, you want to commit suicide, fine, do it alone. Don't bring me with you. You see, it means, that Israel, if it is committing suicide, it will bring, if not all of the region, part of the region with it. And I believe that we should try to liberate our friends in Israel, Jewish Zionist friends, from their fears. Again, I understand them, I don't agree with them. I think this should be the challenge for all of us, Turks, Arabs, foreigners. Look, the Jewish people suffered a lot in history. It is something understandable. But what we have to help them is to get rid from this siege mentality. This siege mentality, in my opinion, it is bad for Israel and for those who are surrounding Israel. This is, in my opinion, the core issue of how to tackle this challenge.
Okay. Please.
Dragov, this is my name. I'm a political analyst.
Dragov is member of Institute and journalist and editor Radio Slovenia.
I would like to ask you a question about political dimensions within the Israeli Arab community. Whereas we see Palestinians have highly publicized, highly affirmative leadership, whereas we almost don't hear politically about the Palestinian Arabs. What kind of head do you have? Who is actual president of the Israel Arab community? That would be the first question. The second is a more practical question. You mentioned you have an Israeli passport. How do you travel to Arab countries with an Israeli passport?
Well, we don't travel. So, look, I will tell you practically.
Do you speak Jewish?
Hebrew, of course, it is compulsory. This is one of the challenges or of the discriminatory approach in Israel, that Israel oblige us Arabs to study Hebrew while Jews are not obliged to study Arabic. I said, I always joke again to Israeli seniors that they study Arabic only when they go to secret services. So, and I think it is not, I think it is not healthy for Israel. Again, if you are amongst Arab Ocean, you have to understand Arabic, not in order to spy on them, but to make business with them. Now, concerning your questions are concrete and practical. For your first part, the Arab League, there is in Israel a supreme Arab body called the Arab Monitoring Committee. It is an umbrella of Arab members of the parliament, Knesset members. It is umbrella of Arab political factions and groups, and it is umbrella of key Arab scholars. So it meets once in a while, usually once in 2 months, usually in the city of Nazareth in the Galilee. And for instance, they met yesterday and they decided to boycott the Israeli Inquiry Commission on the flotilla, because they say this is not independent, we want international independent committee. Other than that, we are not collaborating with any inquiry commission. So they take sometimes decisions, and in it there are different streams. We have Islamist factions, we have communists, we have nationalists, we have different kind of streams. Now, to your second question, about it was about the Israeli passport. Well, we don't. We are traveling to some Arab countries who have peace treaties with Israel, mainly Egypt and Jordan, but also some other Arab countries who have some kind of different kinds of understandings with Israel, like Qatar, Tunisia, Morocco. We also travel with Israeli passports, but to other Arab countries we don't travel, and if yes, we travel through previous arrangements. For instance, recently a group went to Libya. They traveled with with specific arrangements, with the local president inviting or leadership inviting. Sometimes we call it, people are traveling with blind-eye policy. It means when some Arab arrive to United Arab Emirates, they close their eyes on his Israeli passport. Or sometimes, I can tell you, when I used to travel to Tunis shortly after Oslo, I used to give my Israeli passport at the airport. The Tunisian intelligence used to give me a paper that I am a foreigner. You see, that a foreigner, and with this paper, that if a police catch me or ask me, I show him that I'm a foreigner and when I leave, I give this paper, I take my Israeli passport, nobody saw anything. So, but there are different tricks to do it. I can tell you that Israelis who want to visit, not Israeli Arabs, but Israelis who want to visit Arab countries, they can do it with other passports, something real, something not real, but it is their business.
The last question from the...
You say representative for Egyptian embassy.
Thank
you. We're glad to have you here. I have some personal thoughts about the flotilla and the reaction of Israel towards it. I think I see some positive point of it, that they put some lights on the Israeli blockade to Gaza, and which had been forgotten for some time, because everybody thought it's an Egyptian blockade to Gaza, and everybody forgot about the other 6 crossings around Gaza. And it's my personal view that it's late, put some lights against it, that everybody should know that it's still Israel blockading Gaza, and we should work on this just to convince the world and to start with Israel, to start first of all to take off their hands from Gaza. Secondly, not to get advantage from the humanitarian situation, but we have to work in 2 tracks, the political and humanitarian matter, to solve it together. And my question, with all respect to the Arab Israeli inside Israel, and to your power or your weight inside that, can you do something with these, let's say, so-called reasonable Jews inside Israel toward this matter? Well, I don't know, you can do something, if there still exists some reasonable.
Yes, look, I tell you, there are many reasonable Israeli Jews, but again, they are what I call it sporadic islands. And now in the Israeli political system, there are 2 problems. It's not only the shift to the right, there is unfortunately ongoing corruption going on. So people with goodwill, they prefer to make money in business rather than to be labeled as corrupt politician. You see, and I know many Israeli Jewish leaders of goodwill who left the political arena and went to business. Avraham Burg is one example, that I can think now. Avraham Burg was the Speaker of the Knesset. He was very senior with potential to become even Prime Minister. So, but my point, I believe that I have to start with saying mea culpa, our mistake. We believe that we as Arabs in Israel, we don't have, in Israel many times I joke, I say we have coexistence of hummus between Arabs and Jews. Hummus, it is very, very tasty Arab food, popular food. That Arabs and Jews eat hummus sometimes together, mainly Jews come to eat at Arab places or Arab restaurants. But we don't have, even we are living side by side inside Israel. After 60 years, we don't have yet good understanding to each other. And it is very sad reality. Very sad reality. I agree with you. We as Arabs, we could. But so far, we did very little in this regard. Unfortunately, we are many times self-concerned. It means we are fighting each other, Islamists, nationalists, communists, etc. We are wasting a lot of energies to show up in Al Jazeera criticizing Netanyahu, etc. It is good, but I believe, again, I feel that we should start, and this is my debate, and this is, by the way, we are trying at our humble size. For instance, in our think tank, we are the only think tank which has Arabs and Jews working together. And I want to present it as a model of professional. It means our think tank, we don't choose people, if you are an Arab, you are accepted, if you are Jew, you are out. We choose people according to their professional capability, and we are trying to present a model that we want to choose people by their mental capability, not who is their father and who is their mother. But again, it is difficult to preach for such kind of model when people are tense. In Israel there is systematic discrimination against Arabs. So you feel that there is a kind of wall, mental wall, that it is difficult for you to address Israelis, and if yes, not systematically, and if yes, you are still suspicious. It is a serious challenge, but I believe that we should go ahead and trying to tackle it. There are some humble efforts in this regard. I think it is too little, but you are right. I believe, and I can tell you, in '96 we had quite a nice experience, but unfortunately Mr. Netanyahu is bringing always bad things. Because in '96 we initiated some Arab scholars with some Jewish scholars with some Muslim embassies in Tel Aviv. Muslim because the Turks were involved, Central Asians were involved, and of course the Arab embassies to Egypt. And we tried to make a kind of brainstorming together how we can, what we call it, to make a puzzling that Egypt, the Egyptian ambassador who has to address in Israel society, Wadi Abunassar in the university, who could he address, the Turkish embassy, who could, and the idea was, instead of working all of us with the same people, to make a kind of puzzling, But unfortunately, some months later, there was Netanyahu opened a tunnel below Al-Aqsa Mosque, and there was big fire, and instead of thinking about how to put strategic plans, we became firefighters. It is very sad, that sometimes whenever you try to do something strategic, you have flotilla incident, this incident, we are hostages of individuals. But let us try to not to lose faith and hope.
Short questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry for...
Because we have the time.
Yeah, sure. I want to learn the Israeli public opinion against the flotilla issue, because you're coming from Israel and you can reflect us the pulse of the Israeli street. Because we have seen on the TVs just the radicals.
Look, the problem is the media is always highlighting the radicals. I live in Haifa. Haifa is an Arab Jewish town. Of course, it's majority Jews. And I tell you, I know a lot, but the problem is that with those moderates, usually they are silent. You don't see them in the street, etc. I'm sure that most Israeli Jews want to live, as every human being. Every human being wants two things: to live in dignity, it means to have good income, etc., and to not have security threat to his life, to live insecure, And I believe that most Israeli Jews, are moving to the right mainly because they are misled by many political leaders, but also, I believe that there is not enough good PR, Arab PR towards the Israelis. And I believe the Palestinians are under occupation. They have to address the Israelis. Not to say, it is easy to go worldwide and to say, oh, Israel is discriminatory, Israel is occupation. Okay, so what? So what? I will scream for 1 century. So what? I believe that our priority should be talking to Israeli Jews. And this is, by the way, the difference between the first Intifada and the second Intifada. In the first Intifada, the Palestinians were much wiser. They created polarization in the Israeli society, which toppled the Likud government in 1992, bringing Yitzhak Rabin and later on bringing to Oslo Accords, etc. There was a euphoria in Israel. If you were there between 92 and 95, you would think that peace is a piece of cake, that tomorrow, people will dance with everybody, etc. I think it was too early, but I tell you that this Rabin era showed that things are possible. And the second Intifada, unfortunately, instead of polarizing the Israeli Jews, most Israeli Jews were pushed to the right. You see, now you could say, okay, also the Israeli leadership contributed to that. I tell you, yes. I just told you, most Israeli leaders are politicians, not statesmen. For politicians, it is cheaper to make war than make peace. Not necessarily war in the Third World War, but it is cheaper because when you have war, everybody clap hands, you are hero, etc. But it is bullshit. Israel did 2 wars in the last 3 years. What happened to Israel? It didn't succeed. Lebanon 2006, Gaza 2009. Nobody believed that Israel went out victoriously. You see? But unfortunately, the people think, oh, the Arabs against us, etc. And the Israelis believe what doesn't come with force comes with more force. The Europeans believe what doesn't come with money comes with more money. The Arabs talk about politics. I believe that for peace we need the 3. We need security, we need economy, and we need politics. Without one of them, there will be no peace.
I hope you enjoyed this lecture and this discussion as much as I did. I would like to thank Mr. Wadia Abunassar for his contribution for better understanding of the situations in Middle East and Israel-Palestinian conflict. At the end, I would like to invite you all to our next lecture, which will take place probably in the first days of July. And finally, a little gift for our guest lecture and
Thank
our
you.
publications in the last
Voilà.
period.
Voilà. Thank you. Voilà. Thank you. Yes.
With me also.
Thank you. Thank you. Fala. Shukran. Toda rabah, amigo.